it was rare someone from this community is finishing the 12 years of school that are mandatory here in Portugal. And some of them also proceed their studies for the university. But it was really a project that was a game changer for those communities. The other one is really focused also on recruitment. So we need to recruit more people. And if you look for our demographics, so we have more or less 50, a little bit more women than men. But if you look for technical careers, we don't have almost just a few women on these careers. I can tell you from our example in ATEC, we have 1,400, 500 students. We can tell you that we have 3-4% are girls. So everything is men. So we are promoting and making some recruitment programs specific to attract women for technical careers. So especially today, where the physical aspect of work in the industry is not anymore a problem, let's say this way, we have to attract women. We are losing for the industry 50% of our population. So, and there is a cultural behavior, but also, and we need to overcome that. To finalize, an example from Lisbon municipality regarding the digital literacy of the population and also inclusion. So, as I mentioned before, if we are not, if we don't have a digital literacy, we are really in risk. And we saw it especially during the COVID. All this thing was really highlighted. So I needed to buy something, and if I don't know how to use a computer, I cannot buy goods that I need, or having access to some public services. And in Portugal, we have an e-government policy really very strong. I think we can do a lot of things that in other countries not possible. We can do it by the internet. And so this program was established in 2017. Until now, there was already 1,000, almost 1,500 participants in 153 training actions. And they, on this training program, they developed 10 digital competencies along this training program. Okay, just to finish with a saying or sentences from Alvin Toffler from the end of the last century, and he was saying that the illiterate from the 21st century will not be those that cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn and relearn. And I think this was said more now, probably 25 years ago, and I think being a futurist and a writer and so on, I think he was absolutely right, and it makes really sense to speak about this. Okay, so again, thank you very much for the opportunity, for the invitation, and again, enjoy this time, as David already mentioned. Be welcomed, and we hopefully very soon be a part of this family, of the family officially, let's say.
Thanks so much. We start to have more clear what is running in Lisbon and in Portugal. Have a very relevant impact on the economy of the future. We need to set the proper activities. We need to have the right players, have policy influence, because we have such important players, but we also design the future with the attention to big things, and we have examples, projects that you have activated. We know that it's not easy, as you underline. There are challenges. Sorry, I have to stop this sharing. I see also the other speakers are connected. Julian, good morning. And then we have in this picture, we have the clear perception that the partnership can grow up because there is a commitment and there are different ingredients that we are bringing to the partnership, like the legal definition. We have policymakers, we have professionals, we have practitioners, and we have relevant stakeholders, institutions, organizations that play a concrete role and have a clear picture on what are the needs, because also this is a very critical point. If you don't have clear what you need, you don't. So best things to solution is to put the right questions. And you have shared, I think, important questions regarding how to move on. And your projects represent the capacity to move on together. I go back to the program. Probably you don't see my screen. We have now, it was expected, Central European Time 9:55, so probably I'm delayed. So we have Marieke van der Veer, Senior Policy Analyst at OSD, but I don't see Marieke connected. I see Arianna Sala and Julian Stanley. So as Marieke probably is not, Marieke, if you are connected, please activate your camera that I can see you or hear you if you activate your microphone. So you are connected, but I don't see Marieke. So in this case, we could move and wait for Marieke connection. Okay, I see someone is arriving in the. In this case, we can move to Arianna Sala, Research Fellow at GRC, European Commission, and we talk about the new LifeCom framework on personal, social, and learning to learn competence, etc. So, Arianna is sharing the screen. So the floor is yours, Arianna. Thank you very much. We hear you present. Yes, we hear
Hello,
you.
everybody. Can you hear me?
Absolutely clear. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for having me, for the invitation. I'm very happy to have the opportunity of sharing a bit of our work on key competencies, and especially on the personal, social, and learning to learn key competence. So let me. So as you know, the stemming point that originated all the work on key competence developed by GRC is the Council recommendation of 2018 on key competence. The Council of the European Union that gathered all the European member state Ministry of Education identify 8 key competences that are needed for personal fulfillment and development, for employability, to have a sustainable lifestyle, and to have also the opportunity of living successfully in peaceful society. Each of those 8 key competences are equally relevant and important, and the key competencies overlap and intertwine. So some aspect of one competence can reinforce or support another aspect. And all those competences are designed or intended to be learnable and teachable, lifelong and life-wide. So we consider that key competences are developed from early childhood to adult life, and through formal, non-formal, and informal learning in all contexts. So family, schools, work, other communities are all involved in the development of those competencies. LifeComp is the European framework for the personal, social, and learning to learn key competence, and aims at establishing a shared understanding and a common language to know what we are talking about when we are talking about those competent, personal, social, and learning to learn. It has been developed as the other GRC framework using a mixed approach that, let's say, started from literature review and consulting both academic and GRE literature, but also it has built on consensus reached with the experts, European experts, and also from beyond Europe, to fine-tune and exactly define each of those competencies. The LifeComp framework is a tool. We build it to be a flexible tool. We hope that it can be adapted to all the specificity of the local context in which it can be adapted. And it can be used as a basis for curriculum, for developing program, but always remembering that the principle of subsidiarity guides all the activity of European Commission in the realm of education. That means that member states have the primary responsibility for the education and training systems, and the European Commission can only, let's say, suggest, promote tools, resources, and suggest direction. But then those suggestions has to be, let's say, taken up by member states. So how we organize this LifeComp framework? It is organized around 3 areas: the personal, social, and learning to learn. Each area contains 3 competencies. In the personal area, we span from self-regulation, that it is the capacity of being aware and manage our own behavior, thoughts, emotions, to well-being, the capacity of pursuit, life satisfaction, and the taking care of the physical, mental, and social health. In the social area, we span from empathy, the capacity of understanding another person's emotion, values, needs, and also to provide an appropriate response, but also goes to touching communication, the capacity of adapting our style of communication to the audience, and collaboration, the capacity of engaging in teamwork with a respectful and open attitude. And then in the learning to learn area, we start from the growth mindset, which is the belief in one's and another capacity of continuously progress with effort, with the work, and this is something that is very relevant, as you may imagine, in lifelong learning. Critical thinking, the capacity of assessing the validity of the information, to also be able to argument and to reach, let's say, reasoned conclusion, and managing learning to end, which would be the metacognitive ability of guiding one own learning. So, and we also use the metaphor of the tree to underline the holistic approach to the development of those competencies. If you grow a tree, it wouldn't have any sense to take care of the trunk, but leaving out the leaf, or etc. No, so we want to stress this interconnectedness within those competencies, and also we want to highlight a model of growth over time. So from a very little tree, you can reach a centenary tree, which has a lot of fruits, etc. So from my explanation, you will see that LifeComp competencies are in other situation or setting called social emotional competencies, or non-cognitive skills, or soft skills. And as I told you, LifeComp is relatively new. It has been published in 2020, but it builds on a very well-established research on socio-emotional learning. And research and knowledge in education is, let's say, accumulating in this field. And what the research tells us about the effects of promoting those competencies? Well, we have an increase in academic success and a decrease in early leaving, school leaving, an improvement in student well-being and mental health, an improvement of the behavior of students and a decrease of interpersonal violences, an improvement also in the relationship among teacher and students, and that's very relevant also for teacher satisfaction and teacher, let's say, confidence and disposition toward the teaching. And also an improvement in overall improvement in the school climate, and importantly also an improvement in the employability of people, of students. And also research shows that people that have developed those kind of competence also on average receive better salaries. So we see that also analyzing this CEDEFOP ESCO classification. I don't know if you are familiar with this, but it shows, it analyzes thousands of online job advertisement, and with an algorithm, let's say, it extracts the main keywords of what employer are requesting from employee. And we see that some of the competence that we describe in LifeComp are among the most requested by employers. Communication, collaboration, attitude of adaptability to change, personal skills and development, working in teams. So we see that the labor market is already requesting very strongly those kind of competencies, but that there is this famous skill mismatch. You know, the educational system still is struggling to provide the student with those attitude, knowledge, and skills that together constitute the competence. So we consider that technical and cognitive skills are not enough anymore to succeed in education and to thrive in the digital age. We see that we are facing so many disruption. The COVID-19 pandemics has shown the necessity of people to be flexible and to adapt from one day to another to a completely different setting. 1 minute, sorry.
So this is the effect of pandemia. You have to work from home and not from office, of course. Yeah.
Sorry, the problem of teleworking. So technical and cognitive skills are not enough anymore to succeed in education, and we really need an innovation in an educational system, so that educational system in Europe are, let's say, equipped and are equipping students with those competences. And we consider that mainstreaming the attention and the teaching of those competencies in a European educational system can, let's say, provide an innovation of the overall European education system, from the early childhood and care to higher education. And also we are very persuaded that the promotion of those competences through education can increase individual resilience to face the challenges of Anthropocene. We have a lot of very urgent crises that are hitting us. So we use, for example, the metaphor of breathing to think about competence and life competence in particular. We say that life competence are truly human competence, and we can use the metaphor of breathing. Let's say we all are able to breathe, since breathing is something that we need to live for life. So, but in any moment in life, we can learn how to focus our attention intentionally on breathing, and we can learn to use breathing as a way to calm down, to reduce stress, anxiety, or to sharpen our attention. So this ability, which is a natural ability of breathing, can be enhanced through education, and we can, let's say, take all the advantages of this capacity and expand the potentiality of us as human beings. So which are the way forward that we are foreseeing to help educational system adopting the teaching of life comp and also, let's say, innovate a bit the way that teaching is implemented overall. We have created an inventory of teaching strategy that are research-based and student-centered, that are meant to promote life competencies in general in education, but we are going to expand this inventory with the teaching strategy that are adapted, that are constructed specifically for VET, in VET education. We think this is for fundamental for upskilling and reskilling of workers, especially those with low technical skills. We are also developing a MOOC for educator and guidelines. I will share some detail of the three assets, let's say. First of all, I told you the inventory of teaching strategy. We are developing those, we are collecting and describing those teaching strategy, and we described it in a standardized and step-by-step way, so to facilitate implementation and use by educators and teachers. We put special attention in designing on describing teaching strategy that can be adapted to different curricular area. That means that we don't want, let's say, to create a new topic in the curricula on empathy, but we would like a teacher of geography, let's say, to teach geography in a way that ask their students to put themselves in the place of others, to develop empathy through the study of geography. So this inventory will be expanded, as I told you, both with the teaching strategy that are developed for VET education, but also that jointly promote competence pertaining to different competence framework. So for example, we can have a teaching practice that focus on creating digital content and in a collaborative way, so that we, let's say, tackle two different kind of competence in one only teaching strategy. We are going to launch a MOOC, and we would really appreciate if you could disseminate the link to enroll the course. The course will be very, very short. We'll have an estimated workload of 10 hours. We start now in November the 22, and we'll end the 6th of December. And here you have the link. I will share the link to enroll. But I would like to ask also the Secretariat if it's possible to share it generally. The MOOC is created by a teacher and for teacher, and a very, very practical stance. Offer practical example for implementing those teaching strategies in the classroom. And finally, we are going to develop guidelines to teach life comp. Those guidelines will be general, so not tailored on a specific age group or a sector. May be employed in different sociocultural settings and adapted to different age and curricular areas. As I told you, we want to infuse the promotion of life competencies through the curriculum. We don't want to add another aspect or another type of content, or as little as possible. And so it should help to teach life competence without prompting a specific program. As I told you, member states have to set those kind of programs. Promote also technology-based practice without promoting a particular company or product. And we are going to organize a workshop with teachers to fine-tune this these guidelines. So this is what I wanted to share with you, and I would like to thank you for the attention, and I'm available for any question you may have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sala. We understand how it was important to have you here and that you are the right person to introduce this relevant aspect of the skills composition. I think we totally agree in the sense that we have discussed how much the skills for the future must be integrated with skills that now are not focused, are not in our focus, and we need to take very seriously the relevance of the life comp panorama. So we need to rediscuss, I think, internally to our network how to valorize, and of course the course that you offer, it's our interest that is joined by our members, not only sharing the screen, but if we can take agreement on how to facilitate this progress in going in moving our members to benefit from your offer, it is very important. I think that the organization that are part of the Alliance are all committed to make services to our members, and it will be our duty to contact you back after the forum to try to make some agreement on how to valorize this important, very important for our members resource, the MOOC and the contact with you, because we understand that to go through the life comp framework is necessary to interact and to have your support that is valuable, like the speech that you have done, that for us is a very important starting point to move on in the life comp framework. Thank you very much, Dr.
Many
Sala.
thanks. Yes, we think that is really relevant and important to make this jump, let's say, because we are facing really challenging times, and to give a solution to these different kind of problems, we have to also change our way of teaching our student, our youth. We need the critical thinkers, we need the creative solutioner of problems. We cannot afford keep let's say having this kind of standardized way of teaching our youngster.
Absolutely. And this panorama on the life comp framework, technical and cognitive skills are not anymore enough. We need to enlarge our view, to pay attention to what is going on in the research area about skills for the future. And we have this possibility to benefit from this MOOC and to interact with the authors of this important work that is at the base of our evolution in terms of skills identification and capacity to design the curriculum of the future. I have seen in the list of the speakers that Dr. van der Meyer was connected. So, Marieke, are you on now? Because I have seen Dr. van der Meyer in the list. Yes, I see a camera switching on. Perfect. Thank you very much to be here. So you have the possibility to share your screen. Good morning. I see. Okay. The link is arrived on the Moodle chat. We have to move the link from Dr. Sala to the general chat where all participants can benefit from the link. Then we have the screen of Dr. van der Meyer. So, Marieke, thank you very much to be here again this year. We have great support this year from OSD because we have Dr. Andrea Schlecher that has given an important speech for us, wishing us the best capacity to over all the aspects, and OSD this year is contributing with various speeches. So Marieke is not the first time that presents in our conferences. I would say that we are in a continuous contact. Every year we have the state of the art of the research through the presentations of the outstanding speaker from OSD. Thank you. Marieke, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm very much regretting not being in Portugal with you, especially on a great day in Paris, but very happy to be joining again this year. So my name is Monique. I'm a policy analyst working on vocational education and training at the OECD Center for Skills. And today I will show you some key data points and some policy examples related to making vocational education or VET work for all. So just to get started, why I look at VET, but I don't think I need to convince anyone in the room here today. We know that VET can contribute to very strong labor market outcomes, and we see that across all OECD countries. If you look at the employment rates of young adults who have a vocational degree, whether it's at the upper secondary level or at the short cycle tertiary level, we see that they do very well in the labor market. They do as well as those with a tertiary bachelor's or master's degree in almost all countries, and even better than those with a bachelor's or master's degree in some countries. So it's very important to continue to invest in vocational education, but also to make sure that it works for all, because of course these averages, they hide some differences between groups, but they also hide that there's still many students that drop out of vocational programs. We see that from the data that we have for a few OECD countries. This shows the percentage of upper secondary students who complete their program within the theoretical duration plus 2 additional years. So we see that for general programs, we have around 85% who complete their program on time, whereas in vocational education, that's only 70%. And that gap we see in all countries, although there are some countries that manage to keep that gap quite small, as for example, Switzerland, Austria, but also Colombia, for example. So these are students that we need to support further. So this we don't see in the employment rates, of course, and as they drop out, but we need to make sure that VET works for everyone and that we reduce this dropout rate. Now, why is this possible that there's a higher dropout rate? Now, we know that vocational education caters to a very diverse group of students. They come often from more vulnerable backgrounds. They're often less interested in typical standard classroom learning. So they face different challenges. If you look at some data that we collected recently on the educational background of the parents of students, what we see in this chart is that in most countries, students in vocational programs, their parents have lower educational attainment than those who are in general programs. Just taking a random example here, France, you see that those students in vocational tracks, only 13% of them have parents with tertiary education, compared to 49% of those in the general track. Not all countries have such a big gap, but we do see such a gap in all countries. Likewise, something we also see from our PISA data is that students in vocational programs, when they are 15 years old, so I have to note that these are a specific subgroup of the VET population, of course, because in many countries, VET starts a little bit later. But in those countries where there's already a vocational track at 15 years old, we do see that their reading performance of those students in vocational track is lower than those in the general track. So there's some sort of selection happening, together with, of course, possibly also more limited focus on reading skills in these programs. So that means that there's indeed a group of students in these programs that might struggle in some areas. Now, what do we need to do, or what can we do to make sure that that works for all students, also for those who may be struggling? So just put a couple of examples here. So some countries develop new or specific targeted apprenticeship programs For students who have some challenges, in the case, for example, in Switzerland, where there's a shorter apprenticeship program specifically for youth who face difficulties at school or who struggle to find longer apprenticeship opportunities. And as part of these programs, there's also specific support available to help remedy or fill some gaps in terms of academic, technical, and social skills. What is important is that these qualifications are no dead ends, and that students can continue into other apprenticeship opportunities. The second example is to more include guidance and support within typical VET programs. This is the case, for example, in France, where they've really been scaling up this type of support in vocational education since the reforms that they've done a few years ago. And this type of support includes career guidance, but also assessment of skills gap and coaching for success and autonomy. The second group of students that I wanted to mention, well, not specifically group, the challenge is gender gaps in vocational education. So in terms of enrollment, there's no big issues. If you look on average across OECD countries, 45% of students in upper secondary VET programs are female. So that's a relatively good balance. But if you look at the field of studies that these students enroll in, we see very big differences. So for example, young adults with a VET degree, male adults with a VET degree, 60% of them studied engineering, manufacturing, and construction, whereas this is only the case for 10% of female students. Female students are much more likely to go into social sciences, business and law, but also health and welfare and services. What is the case is that those fields chosen more often by female students, they have fewer opportunities for work-based learning, so fewer apprenticeship opportunities, for example. And we all know from the data that work-based learning really contributes to smoothing the school-to-work transition. So again, what can we do? So what a few countries are doing? We found a very interesting example in Ireland, where employers who recruit a female apprentice in the craft sector, they receive a bursary. In fact, they are reforming this now and they're extending it so that all the apprentices or all employers who hire an apprentice of the different gender, they receive this type of bursary. So for example, also employers who would hire a male apprentice in hairdressing, they would get similarly this bursary. Another way to overcome some of the gender stereotypes is to provide career guidance. In Canada, we've seen an interesting program which is called Skill Futures, which promotes the skilled trade sector and the technology sector, and has specifically some workshops for female students to make this sector more attractive to them. The third aspect that I wanted to raise as well is adults in vocational education. We know, and it's been discussed already before as well, that there's an increasing need for upskilling and reskilling in the labor market because of all the changes that are happening. And in some countries, adults already participate quite extensively in vocational education. We see that here in this chart, that in some countries, the share of students in upper secondary vocational programs for older than 25 is quite high. In Finland, New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, they represent more than half of the students. And the average age of those VET students is much higher than the average age of general students. But in many countries, in the majority, adults are still quite rare in vocational programs. If you look at the higher level of vocational programs, so short cycle tertiary programs, you also see large diversity in terms of the adult learners, but on average, already a quarter of students in those short cycle tertiary programs are older than 30 years old. Some countries, this is more than half of the students. So that's a quite interesting trend and something we need to keep a close eye on. Now, we all know that adults have different needs, have different barriers than young students. So we need to make sure that VET works for older students as well. Now, there are many different ways that this can be achieved. And one is to make your programs very flexible. Finland has a very flexible system, which students can enroll in specific modules. They can combine modules from different programs. They can combine school-based learning or work-based learning. There's recognition of prior learning. And at the start of each program, everyone gets a personal plan, a personal competence development plan that is really based on their initial skills and that focuses on what skills need to be developed. A second example here is a specific one of the Meister qualification or Master Craftsperson qualification that we see in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. And this is specifically designed for adults who want to move to the next stage in their career within their specific field. So it's not for reskilling, it's really for upskilling. So there's specific programs that help them develop higher level skills within their field, but also potentially entrepreneurial skills and skills to support apprentices that come to their company. Another aspect to highlight, and this is more about an opportunity maybe than a challenge, is the use of digital technology in vocational education. We know that it creates many opportunities, and we've seen it during the COVID crisis as well. We've done some work on this to see to what extent digital technologies were used in VET during the COVID crisis. And we see that among the countries that we surveyed, almost all, or actually all, used some type of distance learning and vocational education, although there were some challenges related to, of course, the practical nature of the screening. But we all see that there are opportunities with this type of learning, not only in the pandemic, but also more broadly, if you think about adult learners who might find it more easy to access online training, but also those learners in remote areas. For them, this type of distance learning solutions could really help them access VET programs. Of course, we should also not forget the challenges. There's still many people who have limited access to the internet or to devices. And at the same time, there's also many teachers who are still struggling in vocational education to use online tools. We've done some work on this, on the skills of teachers recently, using data from the Selfie tool from the European Commission. We see that there's still a significant share of teachers in vocational education who do not feel confident using digital technologies for teaching, but also for providing feedback and for supporting their students. And what's interesting to see as well is that this level of confidence declines with age. So older VET teachers, they're much less confident using digital technologies. So if you really want to make this work, make more use of these potentially interesting technologies, we need to invest also in the skills of our teachers. So just two examples again on how we can make better use and support the use of technology in VET. The first one is from Denmark, where there's specific knowledge centers that support the adoption of technology in VET, but also really support the schools. So they provide technology on loan, they provide training for teachers, and they provide technical support. And an example from Hungary during the COVID crisis, to make sure that all students had access to the necessary equipment, they provided devices to the most vulnerable vocational education students. Last point I wanted to raise on inequalities in VET is around the participation of SMEs in VET. As I mentioned before, work-based learning is a very important element of VET in most OECD countries. But we also know that SMEs often struggle to provide work-based learning. If you look at European data on this topic, you see that in most countries, there's a substantial gap between the share of firms, large firms providing VET, and the share of small firms providing VET. And on average, this gap is more than 20 percentage points. So SMEs might need additional support to be able to effectively deliver work-based learning. And again, some examples on this site. So there's a few countries where it's possible to share apprentices between different firms. It's the case in Austria, for example, where firms can form a training alliance with the support of the economic chambers. And that's really helpful for SMEs, particularly because they often do not have the capacity to deliver the full apprenticeship. Another example comes from Australia, where external bodies support the apprenticeship provision. So they are the ones hiring the apprentice and then posting them to employers. And they take care of some of the administrative duties, they take care of some of the supervision, which means it's less burdensome for SMEs to provide this type of apprenticeship opportunities. So these are just a few of the challenges that I wanted to highlight in terms of inclusiveness of VET and making sure that VET works for all, but also to highlight some of the innovative examples that we see across OECD countries. I just wanted to close by saying that we are working more on this topic. We will have a report coming out next week on higher level vocational programs, which includes a discussion of the target audience of these programs. And we have a program of work on the future of vocational education, where again, inclusiveness is really one of the key elements of this. I would say stay tuned and please do not hesitate to reach out if you'd like to collaborate with us, if you think we can just support your country or your organization in making your system more inclusive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Call to us several topics that are on our table, and we are always impressed about how the statistics and the numbers and the evidences that you bring are relevant for us. I go fast because we have to restrict time, and now we will have a 20-minute skip in the program, so we will be better on the time. But I cannot stay without mentioning something. You talked about gender stereotypes. I would like to say, because we know we receive several comments that Skillman is the worldwide network for skills on advanced manufacturing. So there is no any gender discrimination in our name. I always repeat this, but it was called by mentioned. Then you said that the students are older. Now we have seen, and this justifies the position we have that against education is taking a different role, because we need to boost the lifelong learning capacity. The capacity that we have to implement offers for lifelong learning opportunities. And in this regard, we think that TVET has a different role, and there is a switch from general education to TVET because of that ethical social skills that you have to develop. If you don't go to school, to TVET, you need to find there the solutions for your need of skills improvement. And then you mentioned the Finland. I remember in your example, and I got in mind that we have a very important partner that is also leading a thematic room, is Omnia from Finland. They are another component of our wide network of very good partner to understand how to implement the skills for the future, the design of the learning pathways, and also the application in concrete with the courses. So then you mentioned also the Meister, I don't know the pronunciation if it is exactly, but I'm getting in mind that we have here in the room one certificate Meister in automotive mechatronic, that is our colleague, our member from the network, Torsten Kietz from Berlin. Then distance learning solutions, and this is also one of the main ingredients on our plate, because we talk about even this need to change on virtual mobility for apprenticeship. And then you went through the main topic of today, sharing is caring. So you talked about the sharing of the apprenticeship opportunities, and I think that this is a very good way to close the cycle of all things that we are discussing that find also explanations in the statistics that you analyze and in the reports that you write. And the research that you do is very much important for all of us. Thank you very much, Monique. And now we can move on. I'm sorry that we have no time for questions because we started in delay, but we are getting better with the timetable now. So we can close with this conclusion of the session. The sharing is caring cash session. And we are moving now with our, it's right, it's our tool. Julian is online, but I'm introducing you because you are not in the screen. So now we are moving to the session 11, and this is a discussion. There are presentations and discussion among the two among the two of the parts that compose the alliance, that is ETF and our side. Okay, my colleague Urs will present our solution for the assessment, and the introduction is to Julian Stanley, that is a valuable researcher, senior researcher, capital development and innovation and learning, and it's from ETF, European Foundation, and he will introduce this discussion. Then we will have our colleagues connected online, and we will have Doriana Monteleone from European Training Foundation, and Claude Bayoun, the director of UK NRE. So this is the composition of the 11th session. So Julian, thank you very much again to be here, because you became one of the main pillars. I have seen also yesterday you engaged in the discussion. So this is very good in my perception, because I appreciate very much your contribution, and I'm very glad that you can present your researches and your thought here to large public. Thank you, Julian. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. I hope everyone can hear me clearly, and I hope also that you can see my screen. I've shared it at my end, but I don't know if the Giovanni, is it visible to everyone? Yes, we see your screen and we hear you loud and clear. Perfect. Well, that's marvelous. Well, can I congratulate your technical team, because I'm impressed by the ambition of the technical facilities for communication that you're offering, and it's great that you're leading and the rest of us are following in these new forms of communication. I want to introduce this session about self-assessment of vocational education. There's a lot of work going on in this area now, because, as we know, there's a lot of work going on vocational excellence. A lot of policymakers are setting policies to develop vocational excellence at national level, but also at international level. And one of the main tools which is used to develop and to support and to share vocational excellence are self-assessment tools. I think we all know what self-assessment tools are. It's an exercise that an institution, that a school or vocational center goes through to assess and maybe to compare its vocational excellence. Now, ETF runs a network called NA, the ETF Network for Excellence, and we run a self-assessment exercise, but we are by no means the only organization and network to do that. Skillman, I know, is also got a self-assessment tool, but many other associations, national and international, are running them as well. So the point of this session is for us to reflect together on these systems for self-assessment, to explore what they do and perhaps what they don't do, and to think a little bit about, you know, how they might be improved and what we've already learned from them. It might be handy if you've got a mobile phone to hand, because I'm going to do a little bit of polling through Mentimeter, but we'll try that out when we get to it. Let's see if it works. So first of all, if I can just flip on to my next slide, just to remind ourselves about the EUVET policy on this issue. I mean, according to the European Union's VET policy, COVEs, Centres of Vocational Excellence, are key agents to improve quality, relevance, outputs, attractiveness of vocational education. In other words, you know, they're not the only lever, but they're a key lever. And centres of vocational excellence are seen as being particularly powerful because they combine a number of characteristics which are seen to be themselves powerful for improving VET. So on the one hand, we have, you know, the autonomy, the heightened autonomy of these institutions, their enterprise, their commitment to organizational improvement. On the other hand, we have the fact that centers of vocational excellence have strong relationships with employers, they have strong partnership, but they're also part of a larger regional or local skills ecosystem. That means to say that they're working strategically with local government and with associations to get a better match and a better provision of demand and supply of skills. But thirdly, they're part of networks. They're part of networks such as the network the network we're working one another today with Skillman, but they're also part of many other partnerships and networks. So these are, I think, are the three features of centers of vocational excellence, which are seen to make them so powerful as a way for improving the outputs of vocational education. Now, I'm getting a little bit of a background noise, so if you're not speaking, I'd be grateful if you'd turn off your microphone. Now, it's argued that self-assessment can do various things, okay? So that it can, for example, develop the shared understanding of vocational excellence. For example, so here the argument is that by carrying out an assessment together, people understand what is meant by vocational excellence. Instead of doing different things, they have more of a shared understanding. Now, I'd like to see what you think, or all of you following this talk today. So if you've got a mobile phone to hand, or you can do this on your computer, if you could go to www.menti.com and type in the code N2 92447751, you should get this question. This should appear as a question on your phone, and you should be able to choose as I'm talking through them the thing which you think is most important, because what I'm inviting you to do here is to rank these purposes depending on the one you think is most important for your particular school. So I'm not kind of asking you here what you think is most important for the government or for the European Union, but the one which you think is most important for your particular school, where you know, which you think at your school level is going to be, or your vocational training center level, which is most important for you. So is it to develop shared understanding? Is it to support development, not so much for understanding, but to move forward your center? Is it rather to raise accountability, to enable people to track how well you're doing and to compare that with other places? Or is it lastly to support research? Because self-assessment tools do enable us perhaps to understand over time what's going on. So please try and sort them so we can get an idea at least of those who are participating today, which you think the most important objective of self-assessment is. So it looks like at the moment, with I think a relatively small number of votes, that it's the shared understanding. but also organizational development, which seem to be the most important. Okay, well, I won't dwell on that too long. I'm hoping that we might get a few more votes as we go through, but let's carry on. I mean, I think it gives us an idea that of where, for you at least, the priority is. So let's look first of all at this notion of a shared understanding, to see what, you know, what's contained in that idea. So I think that if you develop a self-assessment framework, as ETF has done, as other organizations have done, normally there will be in that different levels of performance, and those different levels help to reveal opportunities for improvement. But not only is this a hierarchy of different levels, but there's also a breadth. There's different functions. And very often what we're talking about with vocational excellence is saying, well, you know, you could be doing this as well. You know, you could not only be good organizing good work placements, but you could also be incubating new businesses. You know, you could not only be, I don't know, providing key skills in entrepreneurship, but you could be providing support for adults who are struggling to keep their own businesses going. So very often it's a question of extending functions as well as raising the quality. Here we're exploring the level at which self-assessment might operate at. I'm interested here to explore whether you think that if you have actually used some kind of self-assessment tool in the past, whether you think it's most effective at developing a common understanding in the level of a school or across the whole of the skills ecosystem. That means the school together with other schools and businesses with which it's connecting, or across with clusters of other schools, or across a national VET system or internationally. So I'm asking you to think about you know, your experience of using self-assessment tools, if you have. The code on the Mentimeter, if you haven't found it there, I don't know whether that's blocking it. The code is 92447751. So I'd be grateful if you can gain access to that, if you can give me an indication about you know, which is the level at which you think self-assessment might contribute most. So it's emerging so far. I'm interested. There's a lot of people who think that it could be particularly valuable at skills ecosystems, and that you know, a self-assessment tool is a way of communicating between different sorts of organization, between businesses, schools, local government, because I mean, that is one of the ideas, that it reaches out beyond the school. We've got a few other people coming in. I'm interested that skills ecosystem still seems to be out ahead, which is interesting, because that is one of the distinctive things about a Centre of Vocational Excellence, that it can build this understanding with non-education players as well as with education players. Okay, well, the gaps between them are not enormous, but it's interesting, as I say, about skills ecosystems. Okay, so moving on, if we turn to look at self-assessment as a development tool, this is the idea that a centre or a school can use it to over time to improve its performance. We can see here that it could be used in sort of steps, you know, to review, to identify areas for improvement, setting the priorities, selecting the actions, setting the targets, and reviewing the progress. So here it's a development tool, okay, and of course the point is that it has the potential to be used to support improvement which is collective, where all of the actors are involved, and which is sort of systemic, which is at the level of the organization. So you're building in ways that the organization can lock in improvements. Of course, there's sometimes a bit of a gap between what is promised and what is achieved, and it is my impression that often self-assessment tools are quite good at the earlier stages of development, but perhaps they're not used so much at the later stages. But I'd be very interested to know what you think, and I'm asking you here not to think about what potentially self-assessment exercises might be used for, but what in practice, what you've got real experience of using them for. Okay, so my question is, in reality, how useful have you found self-assessment for these different functions, for reviewing current performance, down the ladder through identifying areas of improvement, and so on. So there's a few votes coming in here. Yeah, I guess that's, I mean, we haven't got a very large number of people voting at the moment, but I guess that's kind of the pattern that I think we might all expect, that broadly speaking, self-assessment tools in practice seem to have been of greatest use and greatest value for the earlier stages rather than the later stages. So I think that's something we need to reflect upon in how to ensure these things are really useful right through the development process. I think that's a bit of work that the designers of these tools need to think about. Thank you. Now this is a dummy. Actually, it's not a self-assessment framework that we're using. It's actually an old one, which I think is a little bit obsolete. And so going across from 1, 2, 3, 4, you've got the different levels, and going down the side, you've got the different kinds of activity, business community relationships. Do you have a business liaison officer, and so on? And this is the sort of classic way that self-assessment frameworks are built. You design the relative indicators, and then you rewrite them at different levels in order to communicate, what might be required at different level. Now you have a choice when you do these things as to whether to keep them quite open or whether to make them very prescriptive and very objective. If they're very objective, it's easy for people, or relatively easy people, to use them, to tick off whether they're doing them or not. But of course, it's rather limiting. It makes it difficult to understand the other things that the center might be doing. You're asking for something very, very specific. So I'm interested to know what kind of self-assessment framework you prefer, that you find attractive. At the top, I've put an exhaustive and comprehensive self-assessment framework, one with a relatively high number of objective indicators. So it's relatively easy to find precise descriptions of different sorts of activity at different level. Below that, should it have a high level of maturity levels? Because the higher the level of maturity levels, the more precise is the description of the level of development you've got to. Okay. Or as we go down the table, we go down the ladder, you could have a system whereby there was assessment a la carte. What I mean by that is that centers only assess against those criteria which they think are relevant to them. Therefore, they're not scored against everything, but only against that which they're working on. Then one up from the bottom, we have here assessment against examples. And this is where you don't give precise descriptions of what you're asking centers to do. Rather, you give examples which they might say, well, we're doing something like that, but not the same. Or lastly, we've got a customized tool, something which you use yourself to put your own goals in, rather than it's something which is pre-established and predefined objectively for everyone. So on the left, I've got strongly disagree, and on the right, I've got strongly agree. So I'd be interested to see which of these features would you like to see, which you think are desirable in a self-assessment framework. So I don't know if you can see the code. It's 92447751 at the top. I'm not sure that's visible to you all, but I'd be very grateful if you could vote and let me see which of these, what kind of self-assessment framework you would like to see. Any feelings? I've got lots of people voting, but they're not showing at the moment. Maybe there's some reason why it's not updating. Why is it not updating? Well, that's very puzzling indeed. Maybe if I go away and come back, it will Okay, that's the secret. So okay, so that is interesting. That is interesting. So a relatively high interest for a customized tool. Indeed, you know, I think as putting my research hat on, I could say that the greater the flexibility, the more popular. So I mean, again, the number of people participating here is relatively small, but those who are participating seem to like a flexible, customized, bespoke kind of tool rather than a set of objective measures. That's something for us to think about, I think, all of us, because the truth is most of self-assessment frameworks are indeed pretty rigid and pretty objective. Self-assessment tools can also be designed to support monitoring and accountability. For example, scoring, which can be used for internal monitoring, but it can also be used for benchmarking. You can have systems whereby scoring leads to labeling and to recognition. So there's an official badge, an official recognition for certain kinds of scores. And of course, it can be used at more systemic level, whereby you're aggregating together scores in a region or a certain sector or a certain type of center in order to get a kind of national monitoring system. Here I'm interested to know what kinds of feedback you're interested in, what you like. So on the left, we've got a little value. On the right, we've got a very high value. It's still the same code, 92447751. So I'm interested to know here, are you interested in an overall excellence score, a breakdown score for each dimension of excellence, benchmarking where you're scoring your particular school against all other schools, or maybe benchmarking only at the level of a dimension, or benchmarking against a selected group of schools, which perhaps is quite interesting, whereby rather than comparing yourself with all schools, you say, well, I'd just like to compare myself with schools in my country or schools in my region or schools who are teaching the same vocational sectors as I'm teaching, where there's some capacity for choosing against which kind of institution you benchmark yourself. So here it doesn't seem like there's an enormous difference between what kinds of benchmarking you want, but perhaps not an enormously high enthusiasm for benchmarking altogether. I mean, people are sort of positioning themselves down the center, and it's not, as perhaps you might expect, that people are saying that they very highly value benchmarking. It may be that people value more qualitative rather than sort of quantitative scoring against people. Okay, well, that's interesting. Thank you, those people who are scoring, because that's useful feedback for us. I mean, I'd like, you know, possibly there might be some way we could get feedback from a larger number of people and share that with you, so that we can all of us have an understanding of what people want. Lastly, and then I'll finish here, I'd like to mention that self-assessment can also be used as a tool for research. And I think, you know, a lot of us are interested in trying to understand, you know, what's going on in vocational education. You know, what is the distribution of services? What is the level of performance? How's that changing over time? And these are things, they're less for development, but more for understanding. How is the sector changing? What are people's plans? What are the relationships which exist? Are the relationships between certain kinds of institution and their performance? So, you know, so we're going back and understanding causality here. So these are the four different, uses which I think self-assessment can be made. Just to repeat: for understanding, for development, for monitoring, or for research. Thank you very much for your contributions, and I look forward very much to hearing what the other panelists have got to say on this issue. So my final slide is just to mention who I am and my colleague Doriana, who's going to be speaking to you shortly. So I'm handing the platform back to the chair, I guess Giovanni, you will then pass the floor to someone else. Giovanni? I'm not hearing anyone. Urs, are you speaking after me?
Okay, sorry, the audio was closed. There was also an applause. Do you hear me now, Julian?
I hear you now. Yeah, I didn't hear the applause.
Yeah, there was an applause.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's no applause, I'll do it all again. I mean, I can repeat it to get the applause.
Because this presentation was very much appreciated. Working on this, on the development of our own system, as you know, and it's important for us to stay close to you because it's the component that we miss. I think this call back to yesterday when I was saying that, discussing with your colleague Manuel Ardinas, that you can source our need of expertise, and this is not only for the joint organization of the webinars that we do every month together, but even for supporting us in the part that we more miss, I think, because we are practitioners mostly, and we are trying to develop our system, getting advantage from this collaboration with you, and you can bring on the table what is very relevant for our tool. Next speaker, I would say that as you belong to ETF now, I will move to the Skillman side. I have here close to me Professor Urs Haustein. We have, can I share the screen? I will interrupt your screen sharing. And we have also a presentation that was prepared by our team leader of the self-assessment tool method, that is Maria Elena Romanini. Now she cannot present because she's engaged in a parallel activity in Bologna, but Professor Urs will introduce our solution, and I, of course, will contribute to replace, even if I'm not at the same stage, but I will try to give some word to describe what we are developing as a Skillman network and the Skillman Alliance and the Alliance for the self-assessment tool. Urs, how we proceed? Do you want to introduce?
Give me first 2-3 words because I will do the bridge of Julian to our side. I really appreciate what Julian presented in his speech before. And I can say I'm working since more than 20 years in development of competency portfolios and skills portfolios and ways from skills to competences to competencies to qualifications. When I started 20 years ago, people laughed about my measures of using self-assessment into the validation of portfolio. And they all thought we are in a formal educational world. We only have the formal values, the formal measurements and benchmarks. And self-assessments were not valued. In that way, I thought it is important. Now, today, since some years, we are World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab has presented that with his last book, Stakeholder Capitalism. We are in a world of the stakeholders for the future. That means we are looking to the values and to the measurements and benchmarks of each stakeholder. And Skillman is really creating a big alliance, a big network of ecosystems with all stakeholders, and that they have developed now a system in this direction where not only formal but as well informal and non-formal competencies can be measured, and not only that the performances of COVs, of centers of vocational excellence, could be measured. And just we need you, Julian, just as you have said and presented, you have presented I'm speaking tomorrow about the micro, meso, and macro levels, and you have just presented the meso and macro levels. and has shown that there are possible connections of these benchmarks to other fields. So I will give over to the leading chair of us here, Giovanni, who has started and initiated with this very good team, this development of the SAT. And I then, during their work, have seen what they are doing, and I was passionate. And I really said, oh gosh, now it's coming. I waited 20 years for this. So please, Giovanni, present first of all the technical side, how everything is functioning, because I think it is, as Julian said, it is a tool for companies, organizations, associations, regions, ecosystems, but as well for individuals. So yes, please.
Thank you. Of course, we are not the first and not the least. We try to design our own system because we think that this approach to sharing, that is the previous topic, is very relevant even when you talk about quality and excellence. And in this regard, I thought to do a tool that put together these the members, the COVES members, to try to identify an excellence level that is not expressed only by the individual COVE. And I would remember you that when we talk about COVE, as we discussed yesterday with Manuel, that we are talking about local consortiums or national or consortium, sectoral consortiums. And in this approach that we look to find a level of excellence that is expressed by a network and not by an individual organization, we have set a tool to investigate and to identify and to make us able to tune the variables, and then to make us able to offer the improvement occasions for the organizations through peer learning and other collaborating activities. The strategy we also have side to this is also connected with what I also commented yesterday, related to the new environment on Moodle platform that we have developed for that we are inaugurating with the Skillman International Forum in these 4 days. So we have set a Moodle learning environment that is adapted to the current needs of communication and interaction. I mean, in this implementation of the Rocket Chat open source, for example, solution, the implementation of the billboard, the implementation, so for live streaming like a TV. You were mentioning before this morning about the television that you have in Switzerland. So we are thinking to a series of different tools that can be integrated, and that can allow our members or our COVES to improve a level of excellence that is the expression of their network, not as an individual organization, but a group of organizations, and to stay in this continuous system of improvement of the 3 steps: identification, setting targets, and tuning of the quality through this collaboration, is learning opportunities, and so on. The graphic that we see here is the result of a survey that we have launched 2 years ago. And that is an example, of course. The red indicates the individual COVE performance. When we say individual, means the network of local partners that compose COVE. And the green, instead, is the targets that we have established this systematic approach, because we have read the picture, we have established what is the starting level, and then we have tried to make the programs for the future. And the blue one instead represents the average. And so we have the possibility to in real time the individual performance with, in terms of benchmarking, no, that you were mentioning, with the other consortiums and also at the regional, territorial level, so we can make different comparisons in live. I mean, in live, when I intend that the COVID has his own profile in the system, in this staff system, and this profile can update the data time to time to compare in real time what happened in the other countries. And this is used then with a very complex combination of algorithms and mathematical operations that the platform that we have implemented allow us. This allow to identify the right solutions for the needs expressed. So if you are not a good performer in a specific topic, you can have the answers to your needs, because the system can detect what are the opportunities that the network can offer to you in that specific topic. And so we have these 3 steps, and we have the system behind this. What you can see here is that the system is developed using another open source platform. This is our commitment to try to implement open source solutions when it is possible. So I talked about Rocket Chat before, Moodle. This is another pillar of our IT solutions, the combination of open source solutions that we can implement. This means that all our member organizations can replicate this using the same code. So, and it is distributed for free. This line survey, ones that are not aware about the capacity of this platform, is a very powerful survey system. I think I can affirm, I can say, but someone could correct me, but I think that if you go on the official EU survey platform, I think that is developed on the same engine, using the same sourcing code of line survey. Anyway, so just to say that it's a very affordable and powerful platform that allows to make elaboration of data with complex algorithms that can provide immediate feedback on what you are putting in the system, and making even suggestions, written reports, and so on. There is not any artificial intelligence inside, of course, but you can create such procedures and algorithms that can react to the data that they use. Step 2. Step 1 is to provide data in the system. Step 2 is to get the feedback and the direction on how to proceed in the collaboration within with the learning opportunities and the other collaboration and offers of improvement of quality, excellence level. And then the step also this also includes the capacity to see in real time how the other organizations are performing in the same variables. So you can have different views. All this is produced automatically by Line Survey. It is not of course say the natural
to add this, the micro level is maybe the local level, level of the association of the company. The meso level you can find maybe in this national average level.
Yeah.
And the macro level will be then the evaluation globally, worldwide, or in a certain region. And I think that is the future of micro-credential evaluation. I will show that tomorrow as well, because that is important for the future, that we have these benchmarks. We can't only give qualifications if we are not looking to the benchmarking fields where these qualifications are connected to, that we really are giving the right thing to the right people. Thanks.
Yeah, we have to, I have taken too much time, sorry. Usually the Italian approach is to start late and to end before, but in this regard, I think we are going to end later. So better that I stop. Anyway, you have understood that there is a technological part behind this, and then there is also an approach that better that you express. Of course, everybody knows already this slide where we mention our engagement for the excellence for all that is also mentioned in your book, Julia. So, this is your turn, please go on.
Yes. So Julian presented very, very clearly the future of validation and valorization of performances within projects, organizations, and individuals. And he said, and I want to add that as well, because the SAT tool is providing this. The self-evaluation is a must, because we are in the new fields of informal, non-formal learning after the only formal learning. Your formal learning is maybe a third of the possibilities of the learning curve. And when you see to all the new fields, it's 360% of the possibilities which we have. And number two, the self-evaluation is obtained from all stakeholders, that we can add the different self-evaluation tools together to a whole ecosystem evaluation. And then third, at the end, an external peer evaluation is then collecting that and is doing a peer evaluation of the stakeholders in addition. And the last, the selected key priorities for the future of assessment tools, and this is like a widening and an addition to that what Julian already presented. We need now quality management and benchmarking for holistic development. We created 2015 at the United Nations these SDGs, these 17. And we said we want to go a holistic way. And SDG 4 example as an EG is the quality education, including formal, non-formal, and informal learning. And we have to go the whole way from skills to competences to competencies to qualifications. We heard that from Dr. Sala this morning, very, very detailed, that we need in this field of Industry 4.0 to a new field of Industry 5.0, or maybe, as I think, Humanity 5.0, all these additional key competences. And I think that is very important, and that is the start and the base for skilling, upskilling, and reskilling. People don't want to upskill and reskilling without any qualifications. Therefore, we have tomorrow a full stream with various experts in the field of micro-credentials, because that is important. People are not willing to go that way of upskilling and reskilling if they are not having international recognized qualifications in their hands. So micro, meso, and macro, I already said, I already mentioned, I think that's our goal. So
absolutely, totally agree. Of course, we discussed it many times with you and the other colleagues of our small team for the development self-assessment. So I think that now we can send the site, ask to Doriana to introduce the self-assessment that they are driving. So Anna, the floor is yours. If you want, you can share your screen.
Thank you.
ETF. We have this that is not from today. We have already discussed times, but already discussed the possibility of mutual understanding in this regard, and we are really committed to keep on this communication with Doriana and the rest of the team, thanks to the coordination of Julia, because of course we want to be sourced by your capacity. Doriana.
Thank you, Giovanni. Good morning, everybody. I'm Doriana Monteleone. I'm a statistician working in ETF since 2006. I'm trying to share, I don't know what you see, because once I share my screen...
Yes, we see your desktop, not the presentation.
Okay.
Bring the other window into the main mode.
Allora, let's try again. Share.
So I suppose Dr. Monteleone is connected from Turin. This morning we had Marieke van der Meyer. I think she was from Paris. We are in Lisbon.
Okay, I don't know. I'm trying to. Do you see the presentation?
Yeah,
I would suggest in the top right you have a little button that you can close, not below, little bit below, più in basso a destra, un pochino più in alto. C'è un triangolino, così chiudi la barra, lì a destra, un pochino più sotto, bassa, la linea sotto.
Non vedo linee sotto.
Per chiudere la barra degli strumenti, alla seconda linea dall'alto, più giù, basso ancora lì. Ok.
Ok. Va bene, la vedete anyway. So you can see it. Sorry for this. It's good morning again. What I want to share with you in the time at my disposal are some of the findings of the NSAT survey of 2020. And I want also to provide some information on the process ETF put in place to create evidence for excellence. The ETF Network of Excellence has been established in early 2020 and offering a platform to support the diffusion of excellence at local, national, and international level, with the objective to foster peer learning in addressing excellence development. It has also the aim to enhance policymaker understanding of challenges and opportunities of vocational excellence. Our network has grown rapidly. Up to date, we have 239 centers from 39 countries. Our journey, we started in October 2020, launching the first cycle of our survey, our self-assessment. During this first wave, we got 72 questionnaires fulfilled from our NA members, and an initial report is already available on our website. In March of this year, we launched the second wave of the self-assessment to conclude the first cycle. We got an additional group of 59 COVES responding to the survey, and we are currently cleaning the database to prepare the base for the full cycle analysis. In 2022, we foresee to launch the second cycle, which will give us the opportunity to analyze the progress in those developmental areas identified by COVES during the first cycle. Okay, so NSAT provides a framework to develop a better understanding of the dimensions and level of excellence. And what we want to do is to help COVES to formulate a customized vision for excellence. The framework generates information that help to reflect upon the state of development, identify area for priorities for development in excellence, and to set an action plan for improvement. And this is done in an environment that facilitates exchange and collaboration with other COVES. In the first version of the survey, what we used for the first cycle, we proposed 7 dimensions of excellence. And we foresee to add an additional module on social inclusion for the second cycle. But let's see together now some of the findings of the 2020 survey. The first level of information we got from this survey is about the relevance of the proposed dimensions. We asked the participating COVES to self-assess in those dimensions they considered important, relevant for them. And as we can see from this graph, 80% of the respondents self-assessed in all the dimensions. But education, business collaboration and cooperation has been considered the most relevant, since almost all the COVES decided to self-assess in this dimension, while there is a 20% which considered themselves not ready, or they didn't consider relevant to self-assessing the dimensions, skills for smart specialization and skills for sustainability. And now our framework is built on a list of indicators, considering a series of services and process going on at school level that can provide evidence on the level of development. When responding to these indicators within each dimension, the COVES generate 2 types of scores. The first one providing the measure of the level of development according through 3 progressive categories: foundational, developing, and mature. The second one gives a measure of the extent to which the COVES is able to take on a leadership or collaboration or coordination role while working with other educational institutions. The result of this way, of course, not all the dimensions have the same level of relevance. What we see here is that education, business collaboration, pedagogy, and autonomy are the most developed one, with more than 17% of responding COVES self-assessing as mature, while only 1 out of 4 self-assessed as mature in dimension G, going green, supporting sustainable goal. What we tried also to understand was to see if there is some correlation among the different dimensions. What we found is that there is a certain degree of consistency across the 3 most advanced dimensions, which means, for example, that 57% of COVES self-assessing as mature or developing, so the highest level in education, business collaboration, self-assessed in the same level in autonomy and pedagogy. This may of course only suggest a connection among these dimensions, letting us suppose that high levels of autonomy could could support collaboration with business and workforce improvement. Or on the other way around, a certain degree of collaboration with business could foster autonomy and pedagogy. Another kind of correlation that we analyzed is the one between the two main scores, so between the development score and the leadership score. What we found is that there is no significant correlation between the two scores, which means that even COVES in less advanced dimension could act as leaders. For example, if we see in the graph dimension E, skills for smart specialization, which is not one of the most advanced dimension, with only 40% of COVES self-assessing as mature. In this dimension, we have one of the highest average leadership score. Another question we had in our questionnaire, in our tool, was about participation in formal clusters with other COVES. 38% of the responding COVES said that they are part of a formal cluster with other learning institutions, even if others may collaborate with other schools also informally or occasionally. Also in this case, we noticed that there is no correlation between belonging to a cluster and being able to take on a leadership role. Since from the graph we see that the average leadership score among the COVES belonging to clusters is not always higher than the overall average. Okay, as we said also before, it has been underlined by my colleague Julian, but also by other colleagues. A self-assessment tool is also important for the identification of areas of improvement. And we also asked the participating COVES to indicate in which areas they are still working on or intend to address within 2 years or longer, identifying in this way their priorities for development. Here now I will show you briefly some example of the most relevant areas of development identified with our survey. As you can remember, dimension F about industry and digitalization was not one of the most relevant one, with not even half of the COVES having established specialized profiles or using the latest digital technologies. And as far as concerned their plans for the futures, more than 60% of the COVES are working on or intend to do in the coming years in developing their own digital strategy or benchmarking their digital competencies. Education, business, and collaboration was a relevant dimension, and in this dimension, COVES reported a success in work, for example, in work placement for students and in employers' engagement. But according to the results, they are still working to improve collaboration with other schools to coordinate work placement for teachers and work-based learning for adults. For what concerns autonomy, more than 15% of COVES are working to develop and adapt curricula to meet local needs, and they want also to improve the capacity to participate in national and international projects acting as leaders. And the last one, and now this is my colleague's favorite dimension, Julian, this is for, this is for you. Pedagogy and professional development is one of the most advanced developed area, with the majority of schools reporting to fully meet most of the indicators. For this area, 75%, more than 75% of the responding COVES said to have in place system for professional development, such as monitoring, need analysis, coordination of professional development. But also in this case, we have an area of improvement, which is the need to improve the professional or industrial work experience of the teaching staff. I think that I am exactly on time, Giovanni, and I want just to thank you for your attention and to invite you to visit our website and our community platform to find further information on our NE project. Thank you very much. Back to you, Giovanni.
Are really committed to use this collaboration with you and to get your experience and capacity. Now we are moving directly to the Chinese workshop, and I give the floor to Professor Mustein to introduce the
First of all, I have to say the personal excuse of Dr. Claude Bayoun, chairman of the ENIC network, because of the big delay which we have in our program. She couldn't wait, she has no new meetings in UK and couldn't wait for the presentation. But she has given us a very good base for a future special event to the field of validation, benchmarking, self-assessment, and excellence in TVET. So I really have to say, any NERIC network worldwide, the authority for accreditation and recognition in the world, worldwide, in all these nations, are looking greatly to all these developments and are concentrating since several years in their excellence in the field of TVET and VET. And I had the pleasure last summer to speak on a Chinese symposium in Beijing, and I was blown away from the excellence and competence Chinese TVET providers already have developed. And that gave us the base to say we need these experiences from them. We need to invite Chinese TVET providers. There are 1,500 TVET colleges and providers in China and around, in Asia. And the Asian market is a strong market now, giving good ideas to the future. And NERIC and ENIC has developed a quality system and accreditation pathway for the future of TVET. So we will do an own special symposium for this, making the speech of Claude Bayoun to a full symposium. And we will inform you and invite you all for that. And we go now directly to the Chinese pavilion, and we see already on the screen our colleagues. So I need to see Steve Miller. Steve, can you please switch on your camera? Can you see him already? Steve Miller.
No.
Is he logged in on another name? I see Actis China.
Yes, Urs, how are you? I can see Steve's camera is on. I can see him. Steve, yeah.
Okay, okay. Please say use some words, how we are making the setting till Steve is online.
Hello, Urs. Hello, Sif. I'm Steve Miller.
Yes, here we see you.
I'm Steve Miller from Actis. So can you see me and hear me?
When you say Actis, then this is the boosting company of ENIC and NERIC.
That's right.
UK.
We operate under different different names because we have to wear different hats and play different roles. So ECTIS is the operating company for UK ENIC, which is the UK recognition organization and part of the international ENIC-NARIC network. So for the purposes of Skillman, we are, I suppose you could say, ECTIS UK ENIC and formerly UK NARIC. The name, of course, has changed because of Brexit. So as part of the European Union, we were UK NARIC. Now, as not part of the European Union, we are UK ENIC, but still the National Recognition Agency for Qualifications and Skills, and still part of the ENIC-NARIC network. And as Urs says, we have been very active recently in China. There is a huge TVET sector in China. We are particularly working with what they call the higher vocational colleges in China, and there are over 1,400 of them, over 1,400. And they offer a range of qualifications, but in particular, we have been looking recently at their diploma. What we've done today is seven of these colleges to tell you more about what they do. They are very keen international partnership with the national drive in China to internationalize TVET more and more. And so this is an excellent opportunity, we feel, to hear more about what we do and to learn more about how we work. And certainly, anyone who wishes to be a partnership with these colleges in China, they are very open to such partnerships. So I wonder if Jolly in our China office in Beijing can hear me, and Jolly can introduce the colleges. We have some short video presentations from them, and then we can have some time, I think, for questions if people wish to put questions to the principals of the colleges. We have the principals, I think, in most cases, or the presidents of these colleges present. So Jolly, can you hear me in Beijing?
Yes, I can hear you properly.
So Jolly, do you want to introduce our colleges today and say a few words?
Okay, thank you, thank you, Steve. This is Jolly, the chef representative of UK China Council. I'm currently based in Beijing and hosting this conference from China. First of all, my sincere gratitude to SIF for the kindly invitation. It's a great opportunity to share the Chinese vocational education to all of you. Today will be a multiple speaker session, including 7 representatives from Chinese vocational colleges. Steve, do you want me to introduce one by one and play the video for each of them?
Well, I think so, but let me just say, before you introduce them one by one, I will just briefly say you have a reminder that we have 7 colleges present today. Yeah, 7, I think.
Yes.
And we will be introducing them. Each college has made a short video presentation. There are also some PowerPoint slides. So each college will tell us a little bit about their size, their scope of activity.
To interrupt you, I'm here informing as well our audience here because we are hybrids. And now we are really in a very special situation. You should imagine we are in China, we are here, hybrids, and we are all over Europe and the world online. So you can see on the bottom line the simultaneous translation in Chinese and in Spanish and in English, so Italian as well. So I think it's very a unique situation. And I give it over to your hands and to Beijing to go ahead, please.
Thank you, Urs. And as Urs says, we have some multi-channel translation, so I hope you can select the proper channel. in Zoom, and I hope you will be able to hear us and understand us as we go through. Each video and PowerPoint from each college will be about 5 minutes, and then that should leave us some time for any questions or discussion that people would like at the end. All of the representatives of the colleges are with us live, so they can take part in the discussion. John, do you want to introduce?
Okay, I'll take from there. Now, as Steve just mentioned, in China, there are over 1,400 higher vocational colleges across all provinces. The total number of students is nearly 50 million. So it's really an enormous sector in China. In China, there's a key plan which is worth considering and thinking about. The plan is for development of higher vocational institutions called Double High Plan, established in 2019, referring to high-level higher vocational institutions and high-level program groups. There are 197 colleges are selected, and these vocational colleges are really important in China. Today's delegates are all from Double High institutions, coming with their Double High program and program groups. The first delegate we invited is Yang Yi. She is the principal of Beijing College of Finance and Commerce. BCFC is the key institute in Beijing and famous for finance and economics focused programs. Now, let's welcome Madam Yang Yi, please.
各位嘉宾、女士们、先生们，大家好，我是来自中国北京财贸职业学院的校长杨怡，感谢 EUVET 总裁白云博士的邀请，参加 Skillman 全球工匠联盟国际论坛，并就论坛主题介绍北京财贸职业学院的做法。北京财贸职业学院创建于1958年，是北京市政府举办的普通高校，是中国特色高水平职业院校和高水平专业群建设单位。学校精准对接北京市高端商务、商业、文化旅游发展，开设财经商贸领域3年全日制大专业27个，其中会计、金融管理专业通过 EUVET 认证。全校全日制在校生6100余人，毕业生大约80%会直接就业，20%进入国内外大学本科专业学习。学校现有专任教师354人，其中大部分教师拥有博士、硕士学位，拥有行业企业经验或职业资格证书，后者是学校开展就业教育和生涯教育对师资条件的重要要求。学校注重产教融合、校企合作，与多家知名企业建立了以企业冠名的产业学院和企业课堂，校企联合开发基于工作的课程内容，建立双元制人才培养模式，实现实训实习与岗位标准零距离对接。学校持续15年建设创新创业教育体系。2017年，北京财贸与英国国家创业教育中心合作成立了中英创新创业职业教育联盟，重点开展创业课程开发、教师培训和师生技能竞赛。北京财贸职业学院是 WFCP 理事单位，荣获 WFCP 2020年世界职业教育卓越奖。学校开办中外合办专业16年，与美国、英国、加拿大等6国12所大学开展国际化高端技术技能人才贯通培养项目。现在，让我们回到今天 Skillman 国际论坛的主题：定义未来的学习，数字革命微证书，分享及关怀。一是关于数字革命。2020年，中国全年国内生产总值101.5986万亿元，数字经济核心产能增加值占 GDP 比重达到了7.8%。根据公布数据，2020年中国 GDP 增长了2.95万亿，数字经济增长了7.92万亿。数字经济领域发生重大技术变革，区块链、物联网、云计算、大数据 互联网技术等在核心产业领域落地应用，在财经领域，移动支付和手机银行快速发展，区块链跨境汇款和电子发票、大数据征信和风险控制广泛应用。再来看北京的产业特点，2020年，北京的服务业占 GDP 比重达到了83.8%，高于全国近30个百分点。数字的发展与应用要求财经领域从业人员在掌握传统专业知识的基础上，还应具有数据分析能力、辅助决策能力、跨领域工作能力、业务流程设计及梳理能力，成为专业加技术的复合型人才。数字技术驱动职业核心能力的变化，要求院校重构智慧财经人才培养模式、课程体系、教师能力资格。为此，北京财贸职业学院构建了产业与专业群对接、技术与课程体系对接、业务与实践教学体系对接、岗位与就业体系对接、企业专家与双师队伍对接、国际业务与国际化人才培养对接的6对接人才培养模式。2是关于微证书。2021年，中国全国职业教育大会提出推动岗、课、赛、证综合育人。在这里，岗是指行业企业职业岗位，课是指课程体系，赛是学生职业技能大赛，证是职业技能等级证书。岗、课、赛、证融合，就是指课程体系的设置要反映企业岗位能力素质要求，通过学生职业技能比赛和职业技能等级证书培训考试，使学生能够对接职业标准和岗位职业能力要求。这里我举2个北京财贸开展的微证书工作的例子。结合近年来大中小学研学旅游市场的增长对人才的需求，学校旅游管理专业开设了研学旅行策划与管理的课程，组织感兴趣的学生开展几十个小时的短期培训和考试，通过的学生就获得研学旅行策划与管理技能等级证书。再如，新冠肺炎疫情改变了人们消费方式，人们减少了实体店的消费，更多的在网上购物，电商公司对网店运营推广人才需求大增。我校商学院适时开展了网店运营推广微证书课程，通过考核的同学将获得网店运营推广的微证书，并胜任这一岗位的工作。学校现在已经将这种微证书课程作为选修课程融入专业人才培养方案，以适应社会对从业人员最新专业能力的需求。3是关于分享与关爱，我想我上面的介绍已经证明了这一点，谢谢大家。
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Madam Yang. Thank you very much. Now, the second delegate is Hu Ha, the principal of Yellow River Conservancy Technical Institute. This college is one of the top 10 higher vocational colleges in China, and the most representative program is Water Conservancy. Now, let's welcome Principal Hu, please.
尊敬的各位嘉宾、女士们、先生们，大家好，我是中国黄河水利职业技术学院的校长胡浩。非常感谢 EUVET 总裁白云博士邀请我们参与本次论坛，感谢全球工匠联盟为中国职业院校提供展示的平台。下面我就学校打造水利类高水平专业群、服务世界水利高质量发展等情况做一简要的交流分享。黄河水利职业技术学院抵触中国历史文化名城开封，始建于1929年，是中国特色高水平高职学校 A 档建设单位。学校深耕水利90余载，坚持黄河为浑、水利为根、工程为基、与人为本的办学特色，为水利事业培养了20多万名高素质技术技能人才，被誉为黄河技感摇篮。校友遍布世界50多个国家。学校现有教职工1000余名，拥有国家级教学团队3支，在校生21000人， 开办有水利、机电、信息类专业60多个，有中国国家重点建设专业10个，其中水利类专业经过90多年的发展，已涵盖水利水电建筑工程、水文水资源、水生态修复等13个专业与方向。学校作为中国水利教育协会支教分会会长单位，牵头主持修制定中国水利大类支教教育专业目录、专业简介、专业教学标准，主持制定中国高职水利建筑工程专业的2标准1方案，国家职业大典中水利行业7个工种职业标准，牵头主持建设中国首个国家级水利水电建筑工程教学资源库。学校在2020年中国水利大类高职院校排名中位居第1，被评为中国水利高职教育的领航者。学校牵头成立中国水利支教集团、黄河流域支教联盟，参与筹建河南省黄河实验室，建设有国家智能社会治理实践基地、国家支教示范性虚拟仿真实训基地，拥有省级工程技术研究中心4个，市级重点实验室和工程技术中心26个，形成了市、省、国3级技术技能创新平台矩阵，引领着中国水利职业技术技能创新人才的培养。学校发挥水利专业优势，深化国际交流与合作，与28个国家的55所高校和教育机构建立了友好合作关系，发起成立中国南非支教合作联盟等国际平台，开办中外合作办学项目10个，承担埃塞俄比亚、孟加拉国等多个国家的水利和测绘技术服务，累计培养35个国家的来华留学生600余名。2018年和2019年，学校先后在赞比亚、南非建立了海外大语学院，开启了中国水利高职院校建设海外分校的先河。大语学院针对当地水利行业发展情况和人才发展需要，开发专业标准，培养当地急需的技术技能人才400余名，不同肤色、不同语言、共同理想、共同目标的国际黄河水院人，正活跃于世界各国的水利工程建设项目当中。当前，学校正与 EUVET 进行水利水电建筑工程等3个专业的国际化认证，进行国际资历对标，建设教育教学资源。这也与本次论坛的主题不谋而合，让我们携起手来，分享职业教育的优秀成果，为世界水利行业培养更多高素质的技术技能人才。我的发言完毕，谢谢大家。
Thank you very much for Principal Hu's sharing. We have learned about Yellow River College's advanced program design, and we would like to invite any institutions who are interested in developing conservancy-related programs can get in touch with the Yellow River Conservancy Technical Institute. And now the third delegate is Mr. Liu Shen, the principal of Harbin Vocational and Technical College. This college is the leading vocational college in Northeast China. Mechatronics technology is the most famous program. Now, let's welcome Principal Liu, please.
"哈尔滨职业技术学院是黑龙江省唯一一所入选中国特色高水平高职院校建设单位。学院现有全日在校生15046人， 教职工838人，占地面积111万平方米，开设53个高职专业。学院先后获得了教学管理50强、学生管理50强、产教融合50强、治理体系建设50强、世界竞争力50强等荣誉称号，获批国家示范性职业教育集团培育单位、国家第3批政府主导型双创实践育人基地、国家高技能人才培养培训基地、教育部首批职业院校校长培训基地、教育部 AI 加智慧学习共建人工智能学院项目建设学校、教育部首批有色金属行业职业教育走出去试点单位。学院构建了面向东北老工业基地、面向东北亚的机电一体化技术、电子商务2个中特高集群，带动相关53个专业全面发展，形成了契合地方产业发展、服务地方经济高质量发展的以工为主、综合发展的专业格局。学院双元教师队伍建设实施5大工程4项计划，建立各级大师工作室8个，组建哈职特色的教授团队22支、3体型教师团队51支、课程思政教学团队60支，打造一支德高、善教、会做、能研发的具有国际视野的双元双师教师团队。学院建设具有影响力的产业学院10个、AI 学院1个、混合所有制2级学院2个、创新学院6个、网红学院1个。学院重点实施脱贫攻坚、乡村振兴、公民终身教育等项目，开展企业员工培训等项目13万人次，满足黑龙江新产业发展和社会终身学习者的需要。学校机电一体化技术专业是中特高机电一体化技术专业群的牵头专业，全国职业院校装备制造类示范专业，1+X 职业技能等级证书试点专业，悉尼协议认证专业，专业排名位居全国第4，获得国家级教学成果奖2等奖1项，开发国家精品在线开放课程1门，编写“13+5”国家规划教材8本。学院国际交流现状及未来的期许。跨国校企校合作模式国际化，学院与中国有色矿业集团等跨国企业及国外院校实施5共跨国校企校合作模式，目前在“一带一路”国家开展鲁班工坊建设立项，服务中国走出去企业发展。学院开展面向国际高职留学生的学历教育，接收2批26名赞比亚留学生入校实施3年学制学历教育，与韩国建阳大学等11所境外高校实施学分互认联合培养的专本衔接、本硕衔接的培养模式，累计51名学生获得海外学历提升，与国际教育机构深度合作，共建国际化专业19个。学院研发的机电设备维修与管理专业教学标准成为赞比亚国家职业教育教学标准，开发的工业汉语系列特色教材应用于跨境企业员工培训，实现跨境教学资源共用共享。哈职院在推进职业教育国际化的过程中，取得了1236的办学成效，即创新1个校企校的合作办学模式，建设2所海外分院，输出专业教学标准等3类教学资源，打造中国职业院校世界竞争力50强等6个国际50强。学院将继续探索跨国校企协同、共同开发、资源共享的有效途径，提升宽领域、多维度、高标准的国际合作与交流方法，构建专业标准、教学资源输出的有效载体，不断提升职业教育国际化发展的影响力，在世界范围内贡献哈职力量。
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Principal Liu. The great video has given us a great view of HVETC. The next delegate is Madam Ma Yuxia, the principal of Zhengzhou Railway Vocational and Technical College. It's the key education institute in the field of railway engineering, contributing to Chinese railway construction. Now, let's welcome Madam Ma, please. Sorry, we're facing a small technical problem. We'll be back in 1 second. Just hold on a second, okay? Sorry.
I'm explaining the development and these genius possibilities we already have prepared with Steve. That when I have to speak, that's the way at the moment, and we're really passionate, and we look fascinated to the developments of all these high-class TVET colleges in Asia, and how they have prepared and how they see the future. So we can see, we can go back to the presentation. Thanks.
Right, okay, the presentation is on, the video is working well. We can play now.
尊敬的各位嘉宾、各位朋友，非常高兴参加此次国际论坛，学习先进经验，分享成熟做法。下面我从3个方面就郑州铁路职业技术学院的情况与大家做一简单交流。1、学校基本情况。郑州铁路职业技术学院创建于1951年，1958年至1963年曾举办本科教育，1999年经中国教育部批准成为全日制普通高等学校，是中国铁路系统第1所独立设置的高等职业技术学院。2003年在全国职业院校人才培养水平评估中排名第1。2019年入选中国特色高水平高职学校和专业群建设计划。学校地处中原腹地，北临黄河，南依嵩山，这里不仅是中华文明的发源地，也是重要的高速铁路交通枢纽。学校占地267英亩，设有16个学院、54个专业，全日制在校生22000余名，教职工1050多人， 其中75%以上的教师具有博士、硕士学位，31%以上的老师具有副高级以上职称，每年有50多位外籍教师在校支教。学校教学硬件设施先进，建有世界一流的智慧教室、高速铁路培训基地和虚拟仿真实验室，为高水平技术技能人才培养提供了坚实保障。近年来，我校学生先后荣获40余项国家级竞赛金奖、特等奖、一等奖，50多项国际比赛奖项，综合竞赛成绩名列全国前茅。2、特色专业资历。轨道交通专业群是我校的特色专业，拥有70年办学历史，在国内同类院校中居于领先地位。专业群建设紧跟高铁发展潮流，人才培养凸显产教融合特点。在此基础上，积极探索1+X 证书制度，开展订单式人才培养，毕业生就业率连年保持在100%，一大批杰出校友工作在中国铁路的关键岗位上，其中包括中国铁路总公司首席技师李向前、原郑州铁路局局长徐一发等。2020年，我校轨道交通专业群率先加入英国国家学历学位评估认证中心高等职业教育领域国际专业标准认证评估计划，对标英国资历框架和欧洲资历框架，开展国际化认证。2021年5月，埃塞俄比亚交通部向该国首批34名电力机车驾驶员颁发了驾驶资格证，相关标准就来自于我校开发的培训方案和考核标准。3、国际交流与合作。学校致力于促进国际交流与合作，与5大洲10余个国家的30余所知名院校建立了紧密合作关系。2007年以来，学校先后与俄罗斯圣彼得堡国立交通大学、俄罗斯交通大学、澳大利亚、加拿大、英国知名大学共同举办中外合作办学项目15个，在校生5000余人。学校积极参与跨境教育服务，分享高铁技术和人才培养经验。2019年以来，先后为俄罗斯、泰国、马来西亚、印度尼西亚等国培训专业师资351人，招收来华留学生141人。学校积极参与共建“一带一路”。2017年以来，先后承接了肯尼亚蒙内铁路、埃塞俄比亚亚基铁路、沙特麦加轻轨铁路、老挝中老铁路等海外人力资源培训项目，累计培训各类人员1200余人，为相关企业和当地民众带来了巨大收益。